Colleen, and this is Diva. Tonight, this is 40, a female perspective. Not always are our guests 40 exactly, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm joined with my special guest all the way in Atlanta, Georgia. Is it Atlanta, Georgia? All right with that? Yeah, pretty much around the area.
Look, they call all the surrounding areas Atlanta, so.
Okay, cool. Her name is Miracle Sims. She's a wife, mother, and a faith-driven entrepreneur who isn't afraid to talk about real issues. She's the host of the God, Sex, and Love talk show, an author, and a Christian accountability and a cultivation coach. Wow, you have quite the resume. And so to get things started, how do you guide women of faith to balance spiritual values with their intimate lives?
It depends on who I'm talking to, right? Is this a single woman? Is this a married one? Is, different conversations. But
okay, well, let's use an example. Let's use me as an example. Since I'm the host, I'm single, like I'm not married, but I do understand that I think sex is more intimate. And when we think about it, and it's a hard conversation to have, right? So, but yeah, you said we have to talk about who we're talking to, right? So.
Right. Well, with you being single, we'll pretty much just start there because that's what ultimately led me to be on this journey that I'm on today. Me and my single years, I was struggling. Right. And as a believer, long story short, was just really seeking the Lord about like, okay, I'm single. I'm horny. I know what I'm supposed to do as a Christian, but where's my husband at then, Lord? Like all the different questions that I had at that particular time. And so I don't know if it's a struggle for you or whatnot to be single and whatnot, but for me, it was a struggle to be single because I didn't want to be single. I wanted to be either in a relationship or married, all these different type of things. So during that particular time, I was looking into different, content things to try to help me in my particular position, again, as a believer, because there's another added layer to being a single Christian, I believe, just because it's like, okay, being single, it depends. Like, if you're not a believer, then you probably think, oh yeah, I'll just go out, do what I want to do, X, Y, and Z. Well, as a believer, that's a little bit difficult because then you got this thing called conviction, right? Or you got this thing. Yeah, I'll just focus on the conviction because I know there's outside influences as well. But I think for me, it was like the internal, like, okay, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I've read the Bible, I've studied, or I grew up in faith, that type of thing. So it's like, it's not that easy to just go out and just do all the things, even when you try, depending on who you are again as well. But for me, if I just keep talking about my testimony, even when I just was like living my life, doing my thing, fooling around, not trying to do too much, but still wanted to do a lot. Like I said, it was a struggle. And so I'm seeking the Lord. I'm like, well, where's my husband at then, Lord? Because that's all I need, right? To do what I want to do when I want to do it, right? And so long story short, I was looking for content. When I was seeing online at that particular time, I saw Christian talk shows and they would, they just would only go so far with the conversation. So I couldn't really relate. I'm like, y'all acting like y'all ain't never been hot and bothered. You know what I'm saying? Y'all acting like y'all ain't never had a trying time or whatever the case may be. And then I would watch what you would consider to be secular or, content that wasn't necessarily faith-based Christian. And they would talk about everything, but then they wasn't telling me what I needed to hear as a believer. So seeing those two things at that time, and I was in my 20s then, but seeing those two things happening, that just kind of emboldened me to just get online and just start talking. At that time, I just kind of wasn't going live then because this was back when YouTube, you had to upload a certain amount of minutes and it was all this other stuff going on.
Yeah, the internet has changed. Yeah. I think, you know what, if we had started our journey, say, like in 2008 when it was just booming, who knows what it would have been like now. But I think what you're saying is true. Like God, Sex, and Love, your concept is different because there's not a lot that combine the two. Like it's either, like you said, it's either we're talking about sex, like, every day, like breaking the narrative and like taboo conversations about it, or we're talking about religious. Like, I mean, obviously I could find a podcast on religion, but we're not going to mix the two because apparently it's against Christianity to even talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, if you were to have an interview with a priest, not a priest, like a pastor, would you ask him about his sex? Would you even bring that up?
Well, it depends again on what he's coming to talk. I mean, we've had pastors come and talk about their sex lives, on GSL.
Yeah.
So, we would on our platform, but before, like, I don't know if people would do that, And I think that's the thing for me. Like, when I think about, again, God, sex, love, and everything in between, I believe that God is the creator of all these things. And so for me, when I look at the world and I look at like broken homes or, all the different hot topic conversations that I'm not saying everything has to do with sex, but when you look at it, like, sex is a part of like a lot of the big hot topic issues that people have. And so it's like, why are we trying to act like, if we believe that God created all things, right, then we need to include God in the conversation, because if he created it and he has this way he wanted it done, X, Y, and Z, that's what we say we believe as Bible readers, then there's no need to clutch our pearls when we hear the word sex and, stuff like that, because again, we have freedom in that area. It's just there are certain, obviously, stipulations that the Bible has to say. And so, I guess, again, that led me to get online, and I just was kind of sharing my testimony and letting people know that, hey, man, I'm struggling out here. If anybody else is like me, here I am. I wasn't necessarily trying to start a podcast at that time. I just was just sharing, and saying that, hey, man, you're not the only one. You're not alone. And so those videos are still up. It's like me with a little fro, and I'm just at that time and just talking about how I felt as a believer and just the different things and struggles that I was having at that particular time. And lo and behold, I would say that those videos that particular time was the beginning stages of what people see today as God, Sex, and Love. Like, eventually I had the idea to have a talk show. God, Sex, and Love, the name itself, I would say it's my testimony in a nutshell, because I feel like God used my desire to please him, my desire for sex, my desire for love to draw me nearer to him. And so that's where it comes from. I know people are like making a big deal, even still now, people are like, ooh, this channel shouldn't be whatever. And I'm like, if you don't get it, you don't get it. I mean, it's 5 years for us now. I'm not changing the name, and it is what it is. And it's my testimony. So it does kind of hurt when people have negative things to say. But at the same time, I feel like, again, with everything that has happened, especially since I've launched it and put it out publicly and been doing this for 5 years or whatever, I'm just like, I see the purpose. And I feel like there's a lot of people that get and see it. Those that watch, those that have been on the channel. And so I'm here for them. You know what I'm saying? And I guess, again, everybody's not for everybody, and that's okay, But yeah, so hopefully I answered your question. I mean, I know
you did. Yeah. I totally got what you're saying. I think you're talking about just how you've gotten to here and now and why God, Sex, and Love. And I think when you have a different idea, a lot of people, there's always going to be someone to say something. And you just have to take it with a grain of salt sometimes, because it is hard. It is hard when, like, this is not my only podcast. I have a podcast. It's called Nutmeg Nation. And I felt like when I created the show, even though I don't live in Grenada, I'm relating it to you with your idea, because not everyone's going to appreciate God, Sex, and Love. So it's called Nutmeg Nation. And when I started it, I had so many negative people. And then even when I was doing the research behind it, because Grenada is a very small island. And for me, even though I've lived in Canada most of my life since I was a kid at 6, I felt like I had to somehow educate whoever is going to listen on this topic of Grenada, because not a lot of people know about it. But I feel like with going back to you, that with your show or your podcast, whatever you're launching with this, I think you're trying to tap into both sides of it, because no one else is doing it. And so that's usually when an original idea comes by, and you're always going to have people that are going to challenge it. They're going to be like, well, why are you doing it? Why are you mixing the two? It's supposed to be like, you're not doing the norm, right? And when you go against the norm, the normal way of doing things, there's always going to be people who have something to say without any backing on it. So I think like kudos to you for doing that. You know what I mean? It's you know, it's you, right? And you got the idea and here we are now, right? So 5 years later to talk about it, right? I think if we're going to talk about like just God, sex and love, just God itself, like I think, even with religion and just practicing it itself, I don't think I've done it in the conventional way. Like I don't go to church every Sunday. I go to church when I can because I work Sundays too. But I think I've had this conversation with my dad and many others, and I've always probably drove my mom mad when we talk about religion. Like when it comes to Christianity, I feel like if that is your belief system, that you don't necessarily have to go. I feel that you don't have to go to church in order to say that, okay, I believe in God and this is my way of life. I'm not saying that you should not, that, you know what I mean? But if you believe in it and you practice it in your own way, like when you make the time to go to church, that's important too. But you can tell me what you think about that in terms of your lifestyle. Like, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I guess I am an advocate for, again, believers gathering and fellowshipping together. Honestly, it's important to do life together because if we stay in isolation, then obviously the enemy can use that and whatnot. I mean, my husband, unfortunately, doesn't go every Sunday either. I think he has the same perspective and whatnot, but I see the importance of it because I'm like, when I look at our son or when I look at, he's only going with me now. And yes, he sees the other men at the church, but let's just say if all the men had the perspective of my husband, for example, like what the young boys there, who do they have to look up to? I think a lot of times when it comes to, again, fellowshipping, we kind of think like, oh, well, what purpose do I serve? But you just never know, like, that who is there that needs you, right? That needs you and your perspective. And so, I work and serve at the church that I go to, by the grace of God. Like he opened that door for me over the past 5 years. Not to say it wasn't something I thought of. I never thought of having the job. I feel like I was placed there, but regardless of all that, basically, but I see like the benefit of me being there and doing the things that I am doing in the role that I'm in. Cause for example, like for the longest time, they did just hire another lady to do preschool area, but I was the only woman on the kids ministry team at some point. And so again, let's just imagine I wasn't there. You know what I'm saying? It was just, and not to say that the men ain't gonna hold down the ones that are there and certain, and doing their roles, but when I look at the little girls that look like me there, you know what I'm saying? Or the girls that are there, the fact that there is a woman in the room, I mean, in the leadership or whatever the case may be, it means something. So I just would say like, I don't judge what people do. Obviously, again, I married my husband. I don't judge that fact that he didn't go every Sunday, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just would say like, I guess we got to think beyond like just our own personal, like, idea of like, oh, there's no purpose to me going. Like there could be some huge purpose for you to be in that fellowship. You know what I'm saying? Because again, when you're serving whatever you decide to serve in, or, again, just being there and knowing that, okay, I can go to my brother and sister in Christ when I have those ups and downs, because I feel like that's one of the misconceptions about being a believer is that you think like, oh, you're a believer and then yes, everything's peaches and cream and, you have peace that surpasses all understanding. And yes, you do, right? But you're still going to go through trials. You're going to go through the ups and downs. And, we need
life is still happening. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you need people that's going to like encourage you and give you good sound biblical wisdom if that's what you believe in, versus like you just not having that and then you don't have counsel or you don't. Like, that's one thing to not have counsel at all. But then when you do have counsel, there's some people that'll give you bad advice. You know what I'm saying? So I think all of that stuff matters when it comes to, fellowship and, actually going to the church and stuff like that. But, I get it. I get it. We definitely are in this season where, again, there's virtual, there's all these options out here these days. So I understand like why people may feel like, man, it isn't necessary. But I would say that it is just because, you just never know.
No, because like you said, with anything, like with any practice, even if it's not being really, or, living a life in faith, like I find, like you said, society will find ways for you to just get away from that or that way of thinking. Or like, I'll give you an example, not only with religion, but I also practice meditation. And my instructor, I'm joining another workshop, but long story short, after you take the workshop, like I did 9 weeks, and then after you're done, the problem is, even though you're practicing every day, if you don't go, like she's always mentioned, going to other meditation classes or whatever, because you're gonna fall off. Like, even though you have the best intention, it's so hard sometimes because we get busy with life. Life happens, right? Just like with church, you get busy with life. You have other obligations, other things you have to do. So like with anything, we need that community to help us get back on track sometimes. Cause like, I get what you're saying with that too. Totally. Yeah. Because you could get steered the wrong way. And then you're like, well, why did I do that? And like, in your thoughts and that kind of thing. But we live in a very challenging time now. So I think it's like this virtual way. I feel like I'm holding on, like Miracle. I'm holding on to like the 90s when it comes to music and like certain things, because even the shows I watch, I still watch the new things, but I feel like we've advanced with technology, which is amazing, but we've also lost a lot of simple. And so we have to keep tapping into those things before completely gone, right?
Yeah. I was watching Living Single last night.
I love that, Living Single. Oh my God. You know what I watch? I watch this comedy skit with Mike Myers from like back in the day, Saturday Night Live, and I'm just laughing because now we have to be even so careful with that. Like comedy is like,
there's a lot going on.
Diva Tonight. Glamour for your ears. This is 40, a female perspective.
I do have a question. So getting back to the original topic and how you practice your lifestyle, but was faith a very strong part of your life when you were growing up?
Yes, I would say so. So my mom was an evangelist, and so we would be going to different churches. She would be ministering in different ways, things like that, so, and she still does and whatnot as well. So yeah, I would say that obviously I grew up in the faith, but I would say the most formative time in my life was that time in my 20s. I call that the cultivation period. I wrote my book about it, things like that. But that was my time of really tapping into everything for myself. Like, yes, I, learn and knew and stuff like that. And at different crossroad moments in my life, I would go to the word because that's what I knew to do, things like that, when I had my questions and stuff. But I would say, again, taking that journey with the Lord and saying, okay, Lord, what is it that you want me to do? And then getting on the path that I'm on today was it's something totally different to like walk the path yourself versus like, okay, yes, I'm depending on my mom's prayers or something like that. So I'll believe it. I mean, everybody has to make that decision for themselves. Like nobody else can stand up for you, do anything for you in that regard. And you have to, again, decide what you believe about Jesus yourself. And then I think that's when something can really be done in your life, or you can, whatever changes and whatnot can start to happen and stuff. So again, I'm not sitting here acting like I'm perfect just because
No, I don't think so in that way. Yeah. Like I think
I'm grateful. Yeah. I'm grateful for the upbringing. Cause obviously again, it helped me to know where to go when I did have different crossroad moments in my life. So that's the beautiful thing about, again, training a child in the way they should go and teaching them when they're young, things like that. But yeah, they still have the child, like my son, like, he has to like make that decision for himself. And hopefully, the things that we're doing will encourage that and stuff on his journey. So yeah.
And even with that, so if he wants to, practice the same faith or go in a different direction, will you support him regardless? Like, I know that's a hard question to ask.
I mean, I love him regardless of what he does and things of that nature.
Is it hard? Yeah. Because you're a mom, do you think like, I don't know how old your son is, but do you think like when you're like now your understanding of like your mom's role and like, giving you a different perspective in that way, like,
well, he's 6 right now, so.
Oh, he's still young. Okay. Yes, for sure.
But like when I think about like my family, right? I feel like the odd person out. Like I feel like the black sheep sometimes. And it's not that we have different faiths or anything like that. It's just that, I feel like I'm on a journey and stuff and it may not correlate to the journey of my family, whatever the case may be. And so with that being said, I don't know like how I would handle it and whatnot whenever that day comes and he's making decisions and stuff like that and when he becomes a man and all. But I just hope and pray that, again, the things I'm teaching him today, right, is going to encourage him and inspire him in those later years. Like how, again, my mom's upbringing well, I would say mostly my mom, because it was me and her for a long time. My father passed before I was born, so that's a whole thing there. Long story short, so the year that I was born, he passed in May, and I was born in August. So that's what I mean. So yeah, and so it was me and her for like my first 5 years, and then she remarried my stepfather, who's the only father I know. So my father, she remarried him, and then my sister was born, different things like that. And so I don't know why I got so deep into that part, but I guess just again, knowing that I can understand that, okay, he's his own individual person. Again, I know one day he's going to be a man, so he's going to have to make decisions that I might not like or different things like that. And so I just would hope and pray that I'm not going to be, at least thus far, I don't believe that I will be the type of parent that's like forcing him to do whatever. Because again, I understand that he has to make his own choices. And then I also know how it feels to feel like people expect certain, put certain expectations on you. So I wouldn't want to do that. But at the same time, I would hope that he would stay in the faith, and I would hope that he would, again, continue to learn and grow in the faith so he can, teach and do whatever else that he can do for Lord versus like, and maybe avoid a lot of the, I know we can't avoid every down season, but there's a lot that we can avoid, right? If we stay on the right path. So.
And what do you think those things are? Like, what can we avoid?
Well, there's a lot of things. So one of the things my mom taught me and my sister was to like learn from other people's mistakes. So there was a lot of people that, and again, no judgment, people who live their life, X, Y, and Z. But for example, I did have friends that, got pregnant in high school. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't,
right.
You know what I mean? I didn't live that, I got pregnant when we got married. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, he's 6, so that's fairly recent, like that. You know what I'm saying? So I was able to live, my 20s on my own, and, I was able to do, different things like that. So you can learn from other people's mistakes and it's not just, again, just their mistakes, but just, again, being observant, listening. Again, I sit here and talk to my son about this type of stuff all the time. Like, hey son, okay, like on one hand, I understand you want to do what you want to do, but you got to understand that me and your father are parents right now. And so, if you do what we say, don't you see the difference between like when you do what we say versus when you don't do what we say? Like there's a difference, right? Things like that. I mean,
yeah.
I know that's the kiddie perspective, but like just imagining your adult life, like a lot of things that, again, I think good parents, right? Usually if you got a good parent, then they're trying to, lead you in the right direction. They're not trying to like make you fail or fall or, things like that. And so a lot of times, again, if we might look at parents or whatever and look at them like, oh, what do you know? Whatever. And I get it. We teens, we think we know he thinks he knows.
We do. Yeah, we do. We always think we know. Yeah. Yeah.
He's the first grade teacher to me right now. I'm like, kid, I know all the stuff you're learning. Like you ain't just answer the question. Like, so I've been praying about this whole virtual public school thing. I'm like, I feel good about the choice. But at the same time, I'm like, you got me questioning things, man. Like, cause you be trying it sometimes, but again, we can be the same way as adults, right? Our parents are trying to, give us wisdom, or you ask for advice or whatever. Like, even if you don't talk about parents, let's talk about like coaching or something. Like people come and they talk about their dreams. They talk about the things they want to do. And I'm like, okay, here's some advice. Here's some things, here's some resources, X, Y, and Z. But until people are ready to do the thing, like I can sit here and be cheering them on the whole time, but they got to do the thing in order for it to be done. Like I can't do all the things for you in your life. Right. And so again, it just really depends. Like, are you going to accept sound wisdom? It's just different things like that. So yeah, a lot can be avoided if we do, stay focused and do the right things. Or, you can learn, like my husband say, his grandma taught him, I guess, bought sense is better than borrowed sense. So instead of learning from other people's mistakes like I did, he was like, I guess I use the perspective of like going through the thing. But I'm like, but sometimes you ain't got to go through the thing, but sometimes people do. So.
Yeah, but the saying is always, like, you said it in 2 different ways, but I remember saying, like, like, sometimes you just have to learn from your own mistakes. Like, there's that rebellious, and, like, I was a kid, just didn't always want to listen. And I think, like, my mom used to say, friends will bring you, but they won't bring you back. And, like, I'm like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? And then it isn't until you're actually experiencing it and seeing that, wow, I guess she wasn't my friend. You know, like maybe you have to learn that way sometimes, you know what I mean? Because you, like when you're younger, you don't always see people's intentions. Like that's the thing. Like it's the innocence or just hoping that this person is a good person. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things like we can't prevent from happening, but it's true. Like, I mean, wisdom is more like, is a thing, right? Like, I mean, you've lived your life and had those experiences. And so you can, you know, share that with your son, and then your mom said the same thing. So I think it's like we do learn from other people's mistakes, and like,
it's both are definitely important. And it's an interesting thing too, because even again, if I think back on coaching and stuff, like sometimes people talk to me about different stuff, and I'm like, you know, telling them again my experiences, because sometimes they want to know that type of stuff. And I'm like, I'm always going to encourage somebody to be better than I was, you know, because I think sometimes too, like, we think, okay, well, it worked out for you, you know, but it's like, well, we're two different people, you know what I'm saying? It might not work out for you, you know what I'm saying? Like it, you know, and so it's just one of those things to think about, because again, everybody's life isn't, I guess, cookie cutter in that way. I can sit here and say all day long, like, yes, I did this, I did that, and I did that, and I avoided this, I avoided that. And so, yes, go on my journey and do what I did. But I'm like, no, because you're a totally different person. So you probably have a totally different experience, even if you do everything I did, you know. And I just don't think at this point in my life, right, look, almost 40, you know, I don't think, you know, type of risks and chances is not all the time. Like, it depends what we're talking about. You know what I mean? I'm a risk taker. You know what I'm saying? I'll get out here and, you know, I want to make every book I want to publish, or, you know, stuff like that. Like, I take risk in that regard, but I don't, like, you know, but there's some things where you're like, like, do I want to...
Give me an example.
No, you know?
Yeah, but like when you say it like that, it's very general. So what do you mean? Give me an example. Taking a risk with what? Like going out past your curfew, or like doing something that's not right in society, like, you know, going out late at night, going out with your friends to the club. Like when you say you take risks, like, or taking a risk with a business, like where a lot of people are like, I don't know if that's a good idea right now. Maybe do some more research, see if it's really worth it. Like when you say risk, what kind of risk?
So, okay, so for example, there's a few examples I could give, but like again, when I think back on people that I've tried to help or whatever the case may be, and
yeah,
like,
you were talking about with your coaching,
yeah, like some talk about like again entrepreneur endeavors, things like that. These people, I guess sometimes I've come across some people that don't, I guess, take the risk to, you know, just publish the book or do the thing or just go ahead and get things in place for the entrepreneur endeavors you want, right? But then these same people will like take the risk with like their buddy and, you know, on all these. One, I think for me, now maybe because I got an entrepreneurial mind, but it's like for me, I would take the risk to like start a business or, you know, get something established or something like that versus like like at some point I had to make a decision. And, when it came to like fooling around and all that type of stuff, like I had my come to Jesus moment. It was like, okay, wait, Miracle, you say you want to be married. You know what I'm saying? You say you want to be in a relationship. Why are you fooling around? You know, I had to be honest with myself about those things and make a different decision. And it hurt at the time. I'm like, dang, I got to cut off the friends with benefits, you know, all that type of stuff. But I had to do that, you know, and here I am today on the other side of where I wanted to be. I am married. I do, you know, have a child, like all these different things. And so I would say that's a good risk versus like maybe during that season, I should have been more focused on getting business stuff going versus fooling around all the time, you know. But then you let years go by and stuff, and then you're like, oh, well, I never got that. But I'm like, well, what changes? Like, what were we doing with the time? Because I think a lot of times we think we have time, and then
we don't. You're like, but you know what? As I look back, like there's like in your 20s, you're still figuring it out, and even in your 30s too. Like, I mean. Everybody's path is different. And I guess I understand what you're saying with that when you talk to other clients about like, well, why are you taking the risk with your body? And like, you know, and that's something that they have to deal with. And maybe it's comfortable for them. It's so hard. Like, I mean, to pinpoint it, like something happened to them when they were younger, you know, their own experiences or like they're even their own role models, like trying to break free from all that. Like I'm telling you, it's like having to relearn. As someone who had, like, I didn't have, like, you call it, like, the greatest examples in terms of my parents. Like, I think from my upbringing, I'm like, I don't want to be like, you're not like what I consider to be the a role model. Like I didn't think my mom was a role model based on the decisions she made, but there's certain to be said, like when you want to get married, I think it takes a certain discipline. Like you have to be disciplined. Like, and I don't know if everyone wants to do the work that's involved. That's the thing. Like discipline with your finances, discipline with like marriage. Like you're going to be with one person. Like that takes work. Like I think that's the whole mindset too, like getting in that frame of mind, right?
Exactly. On my own journey, I had to, again, be honest with myself about where I was. And then I'm like, okay, well, Lord, okay, I thought I was ready for marriage now, but I guess you're showing me that I'm not. So how can I get there, and stuff like that. And it just was, again, that personal journey. And I know everybody can't, I'm not saying that it's everybody's path. Like maybe people don't want to be married or something like that. But if you're saying you do, and right, if you're saying that, there are things that you want or whatever, then I feel like we all can work towards those things and get, not just mentally prepared, but just prepared in general for that season. So
what kind of coach are you though? I want to ask you that.
Yeah. So I call myself a cultivation coach. I mean, I know like most clients, I guess you could say they are, I guess, talking to me about, their dating life, different things like that. But I kind of wanted to stay a little bit general just because instead of me saying, oh, yes, I'm a dating coach, I would say more so like accountabilities because, I've also coached someone that wanted to like make a children's book. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't about like just all day. It's just not all about dating. But I would say that again, with what I went through and the book I made and all this different type of stuff. I mean, I do have a heart for my single people and, if I can help somebody on their journey, again, to prepare for marriage or, think about the way they're currently dating or not dating or whatever the case may be, then, I do have a heart for that as well. So
what would you be coaching them on? What would you be saying to them in terms of like what they have to think about? You know what I mean? Because maybe you're dating the wrong person. You keep dating the same person over and over again. And you know what I mean? Like that guy that not ready or like has complicated situations, like, yeah. And like you said, we're not getting any younger. So.
Right. So, I mean, it is kind of like a personalized, I guess you would say, experience. So, for example, without getting too deep into people and their situations, there's this gentleman that I talk to sometimes that, he came in with like, let's say a spreadsheet, but like very particular, like I want this particular person, this particular thing. Blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that's great that you know that. That's wonderful, right? Okay, so what are you currently dating? Like, how is that going? And he's like, in the beginning stages, not dating. And it's like, okay, so now we got to just meet people. You know what I'm saying? So we're starting from him opening his mind to just meeting people and, being friends with people, stuff like that, right? But then, there's people that, again, it's another good example here, that's
going to different places, you know what I mean? Or using the apps, you know what I mean? Or, like how much time to invest in someone if they're not on the same page as you, because like, that's the harder thing too. Like even when you are just, like you said, being friends, getting to know the person, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I think, so like when I think about his particular situation, I think it's more so about like, I think shedding the idea, because a lot of people would like to lump people in categories. They're like, all women and all men. It's like, hold on, because I'm a woman and I ain't like that. You know what I'm saying? So I think one of the things I definitely like to remind people of, and even myself sometimes, I have to remind myself, like, we're all individuals, that was one of the bigger things, again, once I got married, because I think I came in with the all men mindset or whatever when I got married. But then I had to realize, okay, let me focus on what my particular man like, because it don't seem like he like what I thought all men like, stuff like that. And so that is something that, encouraging people to remember that, okay, like get to know people as individuals, don't lump people into categories and think all men, all women this, because you're wrong. When you say all, you're already wrong, stuff like that. And so I think once we, I guess, get past those things and then we can again get to know people, like I said, on a one-on-one basis, no preconceived notions, like no, like, and maybe that's a vulnerable place to be and try to do, because you can get hurt, like you were talking about earlier, like you think friends, you don't know if they're going to be good or not, that type of thing. But we can't let like past experiences and stuff kind of keep us from getting to know someone new.
All right, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Miracle Sims, for sharing your journey. It's been Wow. Breathtaking. You know what I mean? A lot to think about in my head here. It's like thoughts are percolating. But anyways, so if anyone wants to check out your show, you said you have a channel. It's God, Sex, Love. You have a channel. And also your podcast is...
So yeah, God, Sex, and Love. We do have the podcast. That's mostly the daily inspiration segment called Juice, but it's also under God, Sex, and Love where podcasts are. And then on YouTube, we are God, Sex, and Love as well. You guys can go to godsexandlove.com and access all of that in one place. I'm Cultivation Coach Miracle on Instagram. And yeah, those are the places to go.
All right. I'm Carlene, and this is Diva Tonight with Miracle Sims. You can check her out, God, Sex, Love. And if you thought this conversation was interesting, do send me a message at Diva on the Radio. It's Diva with 2 I's, Diiva on the radio. And thanks so much for tuning in.
Diva Tonight with Carlene will be back. Send us a message on Instagram at Diva_tonight.